Matt
Oh
and
boy.
John from American Pulps, welcome back to Sit Up the Podcast.
Hey
Thank you
man,
for
how are you?
I am living the dream. I just got back from your neck of the woods in sunny Florida, your old
That's
hometown.
right.
It's still there. It's still very Florida.
Florida will
Thank
open
good.
Florida.
Put that on a t-shirt.
Wait, I missed that. I'm sorry, I missed
Oh
that. I
no, that's
completely
okay.
missed.
I just said
What'd you
Florida
say?
will always be Florida, but
You know what? That's yeah. They back to the fossil times. We've always been Floridians. Even I haven't lived in Florida in many years. I'm consider myself a Floridian.
where did you go, Terrence?
So I was in St. Pete. I was in
Oh, okay.
Tampa, St. Pete.
That's
It-
that's John's neck of the woods right
That's
there.
it. That's it, baby.
Yeah,
That's
that's
where I'm
it.
from.
I went to Paradeco, which is a coffee shop somewhere like in what's definitely the touristy area,
Okay.
but fantastic coffee. Genuinely enjoyed it. Watching as the pour over is happening, I'm like, yes, that's right.
Oh
This is why
yes.
I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good coffee. Did you go swimming with the mermaids? Where's that Spring
Oh,
Hill?
Wikiwachi
Wikiwachi.
Springs.
Yes. Did you go to the Wikiwachi?
No, but I didn't know there were mermaids.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
oh, oh, oh. It's been around since like the 40s or 50s, and
It
it's like
still looks like it too. It looks like it's like if you go to the Grand Canyon and you go to the Flintstones thing, it's very similar. It's like that fake rock and
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And
Sorry.
they have air tubes that are hidden behind like rocks and stuff. And the women, they don't wear like scuba
Yeah,
gear.
yeah.
They're waving and swimming and stuff, and then they swim behind like a rock and
Take a hit.
inhale some oxygen, and then they
Yeah.
come back out and they're smiling and swim. It's amazing. It's
This
amazing.
wasn't a pulp novel. I'm trying to remember which one, where like the plot, part of the plot is she used to be one of those mermaids.
Oh man, that's a great plot.
Well, well, in the American Pulps, in the critically lauded American Pulp story, "Curse of the Were-Dolphin," um, one of the uh, uh, one of the women
Was
is
it
a
Wikiwachi?
she wasn't Wikiwachi. She there was a bar in Florida that also had that like, a long time
Yeah.
ago.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then she ended up having a child. It's very romantic.
That's probably the one that I'm thinking of, to be honest.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm
I
sure
love
that's
that you think about us when you, oh, there's a pulp novel. And it's just a short story written by us.
Hey, when I
No, but
think
that does
quality
ring a bell.
pulp,
That does ring a bell. I believe Wikiwachi has come up in plenty of. I'm sure like Charles Willeford or some like one of these great Florida writers have surpassed Curse of the Were-Dolphin in its examination. You know.
I mean,
well,
Wikiwachi is huge, so
uh,
it's going to be in some novels.
before I forget, just because we're not talking the nice guys, but at some point I think we'll have to, because you are two of the nicest guys I know. We'll have to do an episode on the nice guys. One of my favorite lines in that movie, love the script, is when Ryan Gosling's like, I was interviewing the mermaids.
That's, I mean, I love the casting on that one. I mean, we could talk it another day, but Gosling and
Bro,
uh Crow are like that's a great, like, if you're gonna make a buddy cop movie, that's, I mean, that's a great tandem.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's
okay.
good. It's good.
So just make the mental note. Listener, also remember at some point in the future, we'll have Matt and John back to talk the nice guys, because
I love it.
we need
I
to
mean, yeah,
help
we
him.
got to talk Ghostbusters too, because the Goonies was a huge part of my childhood, as was the Ghostbusters. So I feel like I was kind of born for this conversation that we're about to have. And if we talk Ghostbusters, like basically, I can just show this to my mom and be like, you see,
See,
all those hours spent just burning through these VHS tapes
that's right.
are, were essential. So I could seem knowledgeable to Terrence here.
Hey,
I
I think that that's a worthy ambition too. Seeming knowledgeable to me is the height to which most people should be striving for.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I had a containment unit in my room, a washing machine box, and I would trap the ghosts. I had my proton pack, and I would trap ghosts and put them in the containment unit.
Oh, that's, and then the guy from the EPA would come and like he just,
Yeah, always.
yeah,
Yeah.
hate when
Yeah,
that
that one friend nobody liked. He wanted to be. I can't remember the guy's name.
The guy with the beard, yeah, the
Yeah,
EPA
they
guy.
called him Dickless. I can't remember his
Yeah,
name.
yeah, it's true. This man has no penis. Yeah, I had it. I too had a proton pack, uh,
Nice.
and the thing that you trapped them with, you'd step on it and it would open up. And
Oh yeah, yeah. The trap. My
the ghost trap.
my 6 year old son is obsessed with Ghostbusters. Obsessed.
Ooh. So does that mean you guys are going to see the new one when it comes out in theaters?
I,
Maybe it depends on how scary it is.
Yeah.
Depends
yeah,
on how scary it is.
yeah. I mean, my 2 year old's too young for that, but
I'm
uh,
hearing nothing but excuses, man.
I mean,
I'm hearing a lot of
watched
excuses.
Ghostbusters at a young age. I don't know, and I watched Goonies at a young age too. I was
So
sorry, yeah.
Goonies, because otherwise we will get distracted on so many different things. Just part of the fun of having you guys on the show.
I
Goonies,
know we're tangent guys.
1985. Guys, I saw a meme recently. It's like, you do realize every movie from the 80s to the distance between 80s movies and the 2000s movies is the same between 2000s movies and now. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh
oh
wow,
Well, that
that's
was
heavy.
Back to the Future is like already surpassed, when he went in 1985, when he went back to 1955, 85 was closer to 55 than it is to today. So we're already like way past that. And I think Goonies is turning 40 in next year.
okay. So
Oh
I
yeah,
went to
that's
see
horrifying.
Dune 2
Right?
last night, and Josh Brolin is in it.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
And I was like, oh, wow. Because I literally went from watching this to now watching Dune 2. And you see Josh Brolin, who's now old, and like his hair is white and he just looks grizzled compared to him being like the hot teen.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Is he still wearing the gray sweatsuit with the shorts over it in Dune? Or
That is pretty much like, make it like rubber. And basically, that's what he's wearing the entire
I mean,
thing.
that's an incredible look. Like, what's the point of the shorts?
I
Like,
No, I
know,
know.
right?
I guess just to break up the lines. I mean, look, Terrence, you're the fashion guy. I'll defer to you, but maybe it's to break up the lines. You
Yeah,
know what
so
I
you
mean?
don't
It's
look like a ninja. You
like a
got gray,
like a cummerbund. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
Well,
Like a
it's like
sweatsuit
Superman
cummerbund.
shorts,
Superman shorts. Yeah, yes, that's
which
true.
is
That's
one of the
true.
main flaws of Man of Steel. Just saying, no shorts, no trunks.
I just feel like whoever started that trend probably had like sweatpants on. They're like, fuck, these pants, they have a hole in the balls, like,
Right.
something like that. And they had to put on, they just, whatever, it's cold out. I'm going to put on gym shorts over this. Go to work.
I think that's an absolutely fair uh, assumption.
That's how
So,
I would wear it, anyway.
when was the first time each of you saw the Goonies? We'll start with Matt and then John.
I don't remember when, but I wore out my VHS tape I was probably I took notes watching it when I watched it recently because I knew we were gonna be on this, and I wrote, we start with a man hanging himself in a prison cell. Great thing for a 5-year-old kid, because
Right?
I think I was about 5 when I watched it, and I'm watching like, oh man, like the opening shot is Jake Fratelli hanging from a prison cell. And I definitely watched that when I was at least 6, probably 5 was when I watched it.
Yeah, it was different back then. Things were
Yeah.
different. You know. Yeah, so when I was little, half my family's Brazilian. So like when I was little, I would spend a lot of time there, but we'd be out like way in the country, like in like in sort of like a rural area. And so we had 3 VHSs that were in English. So over the course of like a summer or whatever, we had 3 VHSs. We had Goonies, we had Stand by Me, and we had Howard the Duck. And those were the 3 movies. And like,
And everything you need to know about John's personality is summed up in
yeah,
these 3 movies.
That's why you wanted to be Corey Feldman when you grew up, because the two of the 3 were Corey Feldman flicks.
in my 20s, I was on my way. I was well on my way. But yeah, well, Corey Feldman was absolutely brilliant
Oh
in
yeah.
both of those movies. You know what I mean? And yeah, so I mean, I think with Goonies and Stand by Me, which like came out like within a year of each other,
Mhm.
that's like the 2 tent poles of like young adult angst.
Mhm.
It was, yeah, it's really interesting to like hadn't thought about until rewatching Goonies for this podcast, because I, like everybody, has seen that movie a trillion times, you know.
Yeah.
And but it was really interesting, like, oh man, like those two movies came out so close to each other, and it's like they really are kind of like flip sides of the same coin in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, you know. And it's like I don't know, it's just it's like, and we'll get into it when we get into the movie, but like the absolute like brilliance of the way they handle tone in
Mhm.
Goonies is just incredible.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like, I mean, everything that Richard Donner and Chris Columbus did to like tell that story is just so, I mean, just tonally, it's so much fun. Like,
Yeah.
it's so incredible.
This was my first time seeing the movie. I had
No,
never seen it before.
Oh,
I think
wow.
I think you brought that up last time we were on this, and we are like, I think you brought up that you hadn't seen it before. That's
Well, welcome to the 80s, Terrence.
yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, and what's strange for me is watching it in the Stranger Things generation, where
Oh,
Yeah.
that's my reference point for these types of things. And I
It's so
see
funny.
then, okay, I get where we get a lot of these elements from
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I was just gonna say, like, Stand By Me and the Goonies, when I first saw Stranger Things, I was like, oh, they're taking those two and they're combining like E.T.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's like a love story for Stephen King and Steven Spielberg, really. This
Well, okay, so that's one
Yeah.
of the first things that struck me when we're watching the movie. So we'll kind of get into it. When you see produced by Spielberg, screenplay by Christopher Columbus, you
Mhm.
instantly know exactly what you're in for with this movie.
You got some heavy hitters.
You have got
Yeah.
heavy hitters who have a very distinctive vibe. This is an Amblin movie. It
Yeah.
feels like an Amblin movie. And then my first note was just, I love seeing Richard Donner's name.
Yeah.
Oh, he's such an amazing
I
director.
mean, and then the 80s, like you got Lethal Weapon. I mean, he's just an excellent director.
My favorite Christmas film, Scrooged.
Yes. Yes, that's right.
He
He did.
directed Scrooged.
He
Yes.
directed Scrooged, man.
Yeah. That's a classic. Yeah.
That's an incredible movie.
He is just one of those directors. I always am thrilled seeing stuff. Also, when everything's going in alphabetical order, having the last name Aston is definitely like the prime.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah. Sean Astin also in Stranger Things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, is he?
I
Talk about
thought,
an actor who has been in so much.
oh my God, yeah, Samwell. He was in, Lord of the Rings and stuff. He was Rudy. Yeah, he's
Oh, right. Oh, God.
great,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those. He's one of the few sort of child stars of that era that were able to cross over into, it sort of just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. Well, his older brother, I mean, Brand did pretty well for himself, Josh Brolin, moving
oh God, yeah.
older brother in the movie. But yeah, those two went on for big things. Corey Feldman was moonwalking and doing he did great stuff in the 80s. He had a great 80s and early
Mm-hmm.
90s.
Oh, License to Drive is
Yeah.
incredible.
The Corey Haim movies. Yeah, that's him and
Yeah,
Corey.
yeah. The two Coreys together, they were incredible. They just, I mean, like if you look at Corey Feldman's performances in this movie and in Stand by Me,
Stand by Me is incredible.
he is so like the level of like raw emotional talent that guy has is like it's really astounding. He's operating on a different plane than most of
Mm-hmm.
the like in
Oh
the
yeah.
Goonie in both of those movies the acting is superb, like but
Oh.
but like he's really like I think everybody probably had to step it up.
I think comparing the two isn't fair acting wise with Stand By Me. You have River Phoenix,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
who, if he didn't die, would have taken all of Leonardo
Oh,
DiCaprio's roles.
Yeah.
he would have
Start with that.
he would have done all of it too.
Yeah, he was amazing. And what's his name? Um, well, the other two guys who went on to do O'Connell, Jerry
Yeah,
Jerry
Jerry
O'Connell,
O'Connell.
and I don't
Yeah.
know why I'm on the skinny kid.
Toby, I can't remember Toby's name. Right,
Yeah,
that was Gordy. I couldn't remember
Gordy,
Gordy's name.
yeah, and
Anyway,
anyway, yeah, excellent. And that movie had like it was a little deeper and
Mm-hmm.
brother dying and stuff like that.
oh yeah,
Well, I think that's the thing that's, I mean, we'll get into this as we're talking about the movie more, but the thing that this movie is popcorn fun from beginning to
oh
end.
Yes.
It is cotton candy. It is not got much substance, but it's so enjoyable. Like
Well,
from beginning to end, it's constantly moving, giving you the dopamine hits of
I think
just this is a fun romp.
I think Chunk's side mission is just
Uh-huh.
like his B story is what keeps it going. And him in the Fratellis, that's the funniest shit I've seen. Like it's still I was still belly laughing
It's so funny.
with the dead Fed. Like I'm like I that is
So
the funniest.
let's hold on to
Yeah,
that.
I'll yeah, we'll hold off on that. We'll do this chronological. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'd say, but
chronologically,
like,
sorry, go ahead, John.
well, I was like, I would say that like going in, like even just the first 30 seconds of the movie,
Hmm.
like
It hits
I was,
immediate impact.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was struck by like, oh man, I forgot, like, or I didn't realize at the time, like, there is not a gram of fat on this movie.
Yes.
Oh, it's
Like
tight.
it
Super
is,
tight.
Beautiful.
that
Peak
script is
momentum.
so tight, and it's like, you know, that initial opening scene where you get to meet everybody that's going to meet
Yes.
anything in this story,
Hmm.
like it's
So
so
efficient.
comfortable. Yeah,
Hmm.
you're like, oh, okay, like I can understand. It's like, you know, we're in an era where like a TV series will take 13 episodes to even get to like basically what would be a first act break in like an 80s film, you
Mandalorian.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And like and so but like, and you know, they have like these, so you have these sort of like weird openings and you're like, what's going on, what are we going to figure out? But like in this movie particularly, they had their audience in mind. It's like, okay, I'm comfortable, I know who all the people are going to be, I
Hmm.
know that there's going to be an adventure, I know it's going to be like, it's just scary enough to keep me like, you know. And like anyway, when we start, like it just like the way they set up the tone, man, is
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
so
Well, the way they, like you said,
comfortable.
the way they introduce everybody, it's like in
Yeah.
5 seconds, you see Chunk. Oh, police chase, and he spills stuff all over the place.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's Chunk. And then you have like Mouth with his dad, and his dad's doing the plumbing. You set up that his dad's a plumber and stuff like that. You have Data with his, I forget what device he had in the beginning with the belt
Right.
buckle,
Yeah. And it says
and
The
double
suction
seven on
cup.
it, just pointing out.
Yeah.
oh,
Well, and even like you look at Mouth, right? And Mouth is an instigator character
Hmm.
throughout the entire thing. But what's the first thing that happens to Mouth? He gets sprayed in the face with water. He takes an L the first time you see him. And
Hmm.
yeah,
it's like,
Ooh,
that's
good point.
important because the
Hmm.
rest of the time he's being like, you know, like really kind of out of line with people over and over again because
oh, the
that's his
Spanish,
character.
yeah,
But it's like the first time you see him, you feel bad for the guy,
Hmm.
because
yeah.
not bad, but you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
he takes
You
an
see that
L
he's
the
human.
first time you see him, and it's like that economy of
Well, all
like,
of them taken out. They all have an Indiana Jones open. You know,
Yes.
yeah,
like because we
That's a
and we
great
talk about the Indiana
uh-huh.
Jones open when we were writing. John and I, we probably talked about it on this podcast,
yeah,
where it's like when you see Indiana Jones, he's doing all this cool stuff. He's getting chased by a boulder,
Hmm.
but he loses the statue because he didn't speak Javitos, or he gets punched in the
right,
mouth, or something happens, and so like every single one of them, Chunk, he spills stuff. Data, he get his device goes awry. He ends up in the water. The girl with the glasses, Steph,
Yeah.
um, she's just that was kind of a weak one, but she's out of all the characters, she's kind of just plodding it along. Andy doesn't take an L, but like
Yeah.
most of the Goonies, they take an L in the
Hmm.
beginning.
yeah. Well, and Chunk, like I remember this so clearly as a kid. Like one of the first words Chunk says is shit,
Mhm.
and as like a 7-year old, you're like,
Yeah.
what is happening? Like, this is gonna be this kind of movie? Like, I get to watch
Yeah.
this?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's like they're living out this, and it's really like this brilliant wish fulfillment for a little
Mhm.
kid, because you know
Amblin magic.
the note that Steven Spielberg had given to Chris Columbus was like essentially like, what would a bunch of kids do on a rainy day? You
Hmm.
Yeah.
know, like that was like the creative note, whatever. And it's like, and Chris Columbus is so good at writing like child like wish fulfillment, like
Yes.
Hmm.
that it's like it's like they're your buddies, but it's elevated, you know. And
Yep.
like, and yeah, and they're all taking that loss. Yeah, Matt and I talk about the Indiana Jones opening all the time because it's almost like the final beat is like a subversion of the James Bond opening.
Yes.
right? Where it's like James Bond opening, you see him doing something awesome, and you're like, and then the final beat is like, he's awesome. He's James Bond, But but whereas like Indiana Jones, it's like the one sort of tweak that they do is that he loses at the he loses at the end, at least in the sort of like in the ones that I've seen.
And that's Die Hard, opening
Yeah.
up a Die Hard where he's afraid of heights and he's
Mhm.
afraid of flying and stuff like that. It makes him human.
It
Yeah,
gives that moment of vulnerability that
Yeah.
it
allows you
shows
to
they're capable, but
empathize
they
with the
haven't.
character.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have, as you guys point out, it opens with basically you see a guy hanging himself. And that's Robert Davi, who's the villain in License to Kill, which I maintain is one of my favorite Bond films.
It's
Worst dressed Bond
Excellent.
film.
great.
But he's a fantastic actor and great
Yeah.
casting for this movie because he's so menacing. He like
Oh,
has that presence.
Oh,
And
yeah.
immediately I was like, oh, this is a kid's movie. And you're right, it
Yeah.
does set the tone really well because it instantly goes from, and this is something that plays out a lot in this film, moment of like, wow, that's really like scary and dark to, oh, here's the funny slapstick moment that happens immediately afterwards.
He can't
Yeah.
get the car door unlocked. It's just like it's so good. And then they fire the gun,
Mhm.
and like it's like just these choices. It's not that they fire the gun and miss the cop because they're trying to hit the cop. They're firing the gun to hit the wall of fire
Yeah.
Yes.
that like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So
Joey
yeah,
Pants
Joey
the
Pantoliano, like
gasoline around it.
yeah, and you're like, so it's like you get these moments of menace, and then you're like, that's what they were planning on doing, like
Yeah.
and it's great because it's like it just shows like you're gonna get the thrills, but
Mhm.
but the consequences of all of those moments of danger are going to be funny,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like to set that up so quickly. It's just like the whole time I was just like in awe of that story
Yeah.
economy.
The pacing's great right at the top.
Yeah.
So also, I wrote down a question. So we have Mouth, Chunk, Data, and obviously Mikey's name makes sense. But
Right.
what were your guys' childhood nicknames? Was it anything nearly this crazy?
I was Pags. Last name like Pagorgis. I was
I've always been
Johnny.
Johnny. That's what everybody's always just called.
They call you last name because Borges is a good like last
Yeah.
name for.
Gorgeous,
Yeah,
Borges.
Yeah.
What's that?
Gorgeous Borges.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've
Your
heard that
wrestling
one.
name.
Like, yeah, right. If I was going to be a wrestler or a boxer, that would absolutely.
Yeah.
But
It's
most
funny.
of the time,
My grandfather was a boxer, and his last name was Pagorgis, and was not Gorgeous Pagorgis. He was Packy O'Neill because they.
see, that's during anti-Greek.
Yes.
press.
Yeah. Well, they're like, you got too many vowels, kid. You're not going to be in any newspapers.
Yeah.
And Packy was a very familiar boxing name back then. Like Bob Hope was Packy East. So he was Packy, and then they made him Irish. They made him O'Neill.
Well, it was pre-Telly Savalas.
True.
It's the world was really rough for Greek.
Yeah, and well, and Telly Savalas, and then Spiro Agnew brought it back down. And
So
Anthony Quinn, everybody thought he was Greek.
yeah.
Data shows up by like crashing through Mikey's the Walsh family's home.
Yes.
And they play the 007 music as he's going down. Love it.
So good.
Absolutely adorable. But then they break the statue of David.
Yes.
And the wiener comes off, and that just hilarious.
I mean, that is just when they're trying to paint it. My mom's favorite piece. And then they do it backwards, and they're like, if you were doing that, we'd be all pissing on our faces or whatever. And Chunk's like, it looks fine to me. It's just the dialogue's great. I noticing that as an adult now, though, I was like, wow, Mikey had some really like understanding parents. Data can crash through they got a Rube Goldberg device to open their front door. Like what parent would allow that?
Yeah. Well, and Mouth has a real zinger in there. It's like, it's my mom's favorite part or whatever. And he's like, if it wasn't, you wouldn't have been born.
Yeah.
Which is that's funny. That's very funny. That's like there's a real vein of like early talky like crime movie
Yeah.
and screwball like kind of like Howard
Mhm.
Hawks kind of
Yes.
like type of dialogue, you know what I mean? Like it's got that sort of old Hollywood punch to it, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like
It's also like for me anyway, it felt like it was like just friends like kind of ripping on each other, which is
Yeah.
something that,
yeah,
growing up, it's just like a bunch of it's they do a great job with the
It
brother
feels real.
dynamic. Yeah, it feels real. The brother dynamic feels
Mhm.
real between Mikey and Bran. And my wife even we watched it recently. She's like, "Oh, note that." Like I love the brother dynamic. And then just the friendship dynamic when just
Mhm.
cutting each other down and ripping on each
Mhm.
other, it feels
yeah,
real.
So there are a
yeah.
couple
It's
of
so
moments. Go ahead, John.
well. I mean, you mentioned the Rube Goldberg machine. You know, it's like it's the symmetry and
Yes.
nerd alert, but like the symmetry of story is
Yes.
so like they set up the Rube Goldberg
Mhm.
machine and they set up Mikey and One Eyed Willie as kindred spirits
Mhm.
like so effectively in the beginning that when you're in it's just the symmetry of that story it's like a spider web like it's
Oh
like
yeah,
the tension is so perfectly distributed like
yes.
I'd be thrilled to know how many drafts they went through on that script because
Oh my
man it
God.
is so tight.
I mean, the entire there's this very strong argument to be made. Act one sets up the entirety of the movie, like
Oh yeah.
It's the whole
entirely,
movie.
note for note, and I love that.
Yeah,
Even down to when we have Mouth translating Spanish and
Yes.
yeah.
talking about all the things. This is where the heroin goes. This
No,
is where the
that's
cocaine
the
goes.
best way to show that he speaks Spanish. Like it's just
The upstairs, but she's like, don't go upstairs. That's where Mr. Walsh keeps his antique stuff. And he goes, that's where the BDSM sex dungeon
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Don't go up
exactly.
there. And she's like crossing herself. It's
Yeah, he's like, if you do a bad job, you'll be stuck in here with the cockroaches. It's just
uh
like so good. No water, no food for 2 weeks or whatever. Oh, it's so good.
yeah, I would even hazard a guess that at one point I would even wager that they had, and I forget her name, Josh Brolin's love interest in the movie.
Oh,
Andy,
and
Um,
yeah,
I'll bet they had her practicing piano.
yeah,
Um,
probably.
at one point, and they're like, we
Yeah.
don't need that. Like,
Mhm.
yeah. We'll have her
yeah,
in instead of as a cheerleader, setting her up as a cheerleader. She's at a
yeah. Oh,
recital.
right, she was a cheerleader. So never mind,
Yeah,
never mind.
yeah.
Cheerleader's better. But anyway, that was the only thing that kind of came out where you're like, oh, I mean, it's not like people don't take piano lessons, but whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably thought about it, and then they're like, "Well, and then it's like, well, if she's excellent at piano, then she would have just fucking flew right through that."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they set up that there's foreclosure going to happen on the house and they're getting ready to move. They don't want to move. The kids like rummage around in the attic and play with some of the antiques. And that's when they find the doubloon, they find the map, and that starts them off on the treasure hunt, which
Yeah,
again, just I love how Josh Brolin instantly my sympathies. I think it's that I'm older now watching this movie versus as a child. I
Yeah.
sympathize more with poor Josh Brolin's character,
Oh my
where
God.
he has
yeah,
been left with these kids and his job is to make sure they don't mess things up. And then they're like, yeah, we're gonna tie you up and leave you.
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah.
like herding cats.
Oh, by the way, I for this occasion I wore my Spanish doubloon here. I don't
There
know.
you go. That's
Ooh,
awesome.
that's
Yeah, my
awesome.
grandfather's doubloon. So look, guys, we follow this map right here, and we'll be doing the next podcast from penthouse, baby.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. We'll go we'll have to go to Brazil then. Because
yeah, yeah, for the exchange rate. Yes.
So then they find the location on the box. I'll be honest, this is the entire portion of them having the map to figuring out that this lighthouse area was where
oh
things
yeah.
start was really fuzzy for me.
Mhm.
But nevertheless, we accept that we get to the lighthouse thing. Of course, that is where the Fratellis are hiding out.
Yeah.
And they go in there and immediately are terrified. Again, the terror to things happening when she grabs Mouth and is like, our specialist tongue.
Yeah.
And she's like like holding the knife. It's like, oh my goodness, they don't even know they're the bad guys yet, like
Yeah.
officially. They're just wandering in, these strangers are torturing them.
and they shot feds off camera. You know, the feds go in, they're like, oh, they must have dropped some pots or something. Like they're like talking it off. And then Chunk sees the Jeep in the back. It's like ORV bullet holes. And he comes back like bullet holes the size of matzo balls, which is one of the
That's great.
funniest lines. Like matzo balls are massive. If you have bullet holes that big, that's like it's like airplane artillery fire. Like it's just like getting shot with a cannon. Like those are big bullet holes.
They order water, and I love the fact that's dirty dishwater basically that they get. And then one of the kids says he needs to use the bathroom and instantly mouths like
Yes.
turning the water, running water from glass to glass.
No, it's and then we're introduced to Sloth, which is which was a nickname for one of the kids I went to college with. And he he was a good sport about it. But watching that, I was like, man, I feel bad about that guy.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, and really like a real scare for a kid.
Yeah.
You know, like I mean,
Yeah.
you're really like, and it's interesting, like, you know, because of how the character of Sloth develops, it's like it's I mean, I don't know, it's really interesting. I the 80s cinema, I think, and I think this is like probably one of like Spielberg's great accomplishments in cinema, is like just the way that they nail, the way that they ride that line between like something that's genuinely scary, and then but it's like you can still enjoy it, because it's like then you've got a crack about Chunk, or you've got like a what, whatever. And it's like it just keeps the leash tight enough on the viewer. It's really, because like those first few like glimpses of Sloth, like,
Yeah.
I mean, he's chained. Like it's literally one of those things where you're like, what is going on here?
And they give him a plate of like the grossest charcuterie I've ever seen. It looks like it looks like crab apples and like moldy cheese. It's
look
terrible.
at this feast I prepared for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the
You
other thing.
ruin everything.
Robert Davi sings like operatically, and here's the thing: he actually is a really good singer. He has gone on tour, like doing Sinatra standards.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
You
yeah.
can stream on Apple Music. Robert Davi sings Frank Sinatra.
Okay, I will.
Yeah, no, I'm on board. My favorite,
I will do that.
and we're kind of jumping ahead, but my favorite when he sings is when Chunk's like, I ran into these people, these terrible people called the Fratellis. I can like describe all three, or like, and I can identify all three. And then the light comes on, and it's Robert Davi, and he starts singing as Chunk's like doing the death prayer, the Jewish like death prayer. It's so good. It's just one of the funniest things.
It's such a great moment. So the criminals kind of just let them go, and there's the line, kids suck, that the
Yes.
mom says, and it's a line that I resonated with. I was like, you're not wrong.
Nope.
My only, like, you were talking about how it was a little hazy, where they like kind of found that where Went Out Willie's map like led to. For me, it was the haziest was how Brand found them in that place, because he kind of ran into them.
Yeah. Well, that's the other part. Let's touch on Brand steals a little girl's bike because they let the tires out of his bike. And like there's a whole thing about how he doesn't have a driver's license.
Yes, which is excellent. That's a great but yeah, he steals Data's sister's little bike with training wheels. Excellent. And then he runs into the classic 80s rich douchebag.
Oh yeah, sweater around the neck, kind of
like that's like Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield. Like all the bad guys in those 80s films were like rich, douchey rich guys.
I mean,
yeah, it was like real yuppie angst.
Yes,
translated into.
Yes.
If you didn't need a more reason to think he's a douche, he's like trying to adjust the mirror so he can see down Andy's blouse. Like,
so funny. Yeah, well, he's not all bad.
I mean, yeah, even Hitler liked the paint. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, Well, it's funny too. Again, like this tonal masterstroke where it's like what he does to Josh Brolin is horrifying.
Oh yeah,
Like, I
oh
mean,
it's
he basically could have killed the guy in cold blood. Like,
Yeah.
it's absolutely it's like the guys in Toxic Avenger, right? That like oh 3 points for a grandma or whatever it is, and they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
well, I
yeah.
don't know if you've seen Toxic Avenger, but like but I mean, it's really, really evil. And it's like somehow in the movie, you're just like, let's keep it rolling. Like he's gonna be fine,
well, that's the
you
thing.
know?
It just keeps clipping. It does a good job
Yeah,
of set up payoff. So
Yeah.
they
yeah,
get Josh Brolin finds the kids and they go down to the basement of the place and
Mhm.
because they're looking for like the lowest spot. And this is where I made a note. This movie has like an It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia vibe where all the kids are like yelling over top each other while Josh Brolin is trying to talk to Steph and Andy. At the same time, he's trying to wrangle the kids. And
Yeah.
you feel it feels real and natural. And that's one of the things
I
that
think
actually is a great example of how Sunny works well and this works well. That's how real life works.
Yeah, it's
mhm.
chaotic. I think it was a very chaotic set to the point where I believe Richard Donner had to like go on vacation in the middle of filming.
Yes.
Like Spielberg was like, you like go to Hawaii. Like he had to take some time off because and so like yes, it was chaotic on camera, but I feel like behind the scenes was even worse with
I
those.
had
I was reading
read
the
that
production notes and it made a comment. Richard Donner says, yes, working with child actors, especially that many of them at once,
Yeah,
was a
you can
trial.
imagine. Yeah.
I had seen a video on YouTube of like it was like a home video where Richard Donner, I think after they wrapped, he he went to Hawaii and
Oh,
was
okay,
just
with
like, I don't
Apple.
want to see any kids ever again. And then the
Spielberg
cast surprised him.
Spielberg flew him
And
out. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can see, which is like maybe one of the cruelest pranks ever on Spielberg's part. Or maybe he just didn't know how over it he was. But you can see on his face, like this is the face of a man that doesn't want to tell a bunch of kids to get out of his house,
Yeah.
but he would love to be able to get them out of his
He just
house.
wants to crush some Mai Tais and enjoy his
Yeah,
time on the beach. And
exactly. Yeah,
kids
really,
ruin
really,
it,
really funny.
chunks
As somebody who
break.
now spends a lot of time at like elementary schools and kids' birthday parties and stuff. Like I have the slightest taste of what that must be like, you know.
So this is where, again, like a lot of chaos going on at once. They find this counterfeit printing press, which literally never comes up again in the movie.
Yeah.
They're like, we're rich, we can save the house. Oh wait, this is fake money. And then they talk about like it's 20 to life for counterfeiting or something like that. And also not clear how Andy and Steph suddenly show up and find them. But again, the movie's moving fast enough. We don't ask the questions and we don't
Yeah,
care.
it's you can suspend
Yeah.
belief there. Yeah, and like back to the saving the house, we didn't cover that. Watching it again, it's like that's like a multi-million-dollar home right on the water.
Oh my God.
Oh, they're
Yeah.
the
Oh God.
poor,
Yeah.
like the Goonies are the poor kids. They live in this like very enviable home. Uh,
Right.
you know,
It's like the Simpsons house or like Married with Children. Like, oh, we're so poor. It's like, really? You got like
yeah,
two
yeah,
story
two
house,
broke,
like you got like a 4 bedroom, 2 story home, like the suburbs. Like, really? Like, cause
two broke
uh
girls living in this monstrous apartment in New
yeah,
York.
because
Yeah,
in Burbank that would be
broke.
like a $3 million home. So
Yeah,
um
exactly.
but yeah the well I love the counterfeit money beat because it's like to have that false victory.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It was really cool because it's like the momentum of the story never lets them never lets them stop. So it's
Yep.
like you have these and there's always like these great moments where you're like people are always kind of pointing out the fact that like we should stop, we shouldn't do this is foolish, this is whatever, and
Mhm.
there's always some
Yep.
machination, and I mean that in a
Mhm.
positive way, that just like
Yeah.
keeps them
Yeah,
going.
well, and
So it's
they have several false victories. They have
Yeah.
when they go into the well and they see
Mhm.
all
mm,
the coins and it's just pennies.
yeah,
And then they get to the I mean, I'm jumping ahead, but they get to the pirate ship and it goes
Mhm.
it sails away. Like they have a bunch of false victories throughout. It's yeah, excellent storytelling.
So they have to find the lowest point. Chunk knocks over the water thing and that spills, and they realize that the lowest point is actually the grate, and that's a passageway. But let's not get away from the fact Chunk is about to leave and he smells ice cream. I don't know about two of you. I can't smell ice cream that's in a freezer, but Chunk is on a next level.
We're not,
Well,
yeah,
you're not part wolf like Chunk
yeah,
is. Huh?
yeah. He smells the pepperoni when they come, and,
Yeah,
and
you're
the
not
pizza.
a lichen the way Chunk really is. That's the fan fiction I want. Chunk is actually a werewolf.
Coming soon to American Pulps. And that's when they find the dead Fed.
Yes, which is like watching that, like it, like I said, I was belly laughing again, and I can, I think, pinpoint my gallows humor, my twisted sense of humor to this film. I think like there's no other, like I like, oh, this is a big part of my childhood, and this is so much dark and twisted humor for a child. And that scene, the guy who played that dead body is one of the best. Like his acting was just brilliant.
Yeah, and again, you're watching a child trapped in a walk-in freezer with a corpse, and it's funny. You
Yeah.
know, it's like that is not that can't be easy to pull that
No,
off. You
no.
know,
It's
like I mean,
slapstick.
Weekend at Bernie's is one of my favorite films, and like
Classic.
Yeah.
oh, it's such an incredible movie. And but those are adults, you know, and like I mean, just this screaming child trapped in a walk-in freezer with a murdered corpse,
And
And
he's
his
just
friends
forehead
leave
to
and
him.
it's
forehead.
funny,
His
They
and it's
forehead to
funny.
forehead with this thing, just trying to push it off. So
they
Yeah.
good.
they leave that's the thing. Like they leave him, which is also I think so much like a real thing where
Screw
I
you,
don't know
bro.
about
We
you
gotta
guys
find
as
the treasure.
kids. You're going somewhere, you're like, where did Frank go? Wasn't
Yeah.
he here like 10 minutes ago? Huh, guess we lost Frank. Moving on.
That is a group of friends, like just, oh fuck, where'd Chunk go?
Yeah, I wonder. I
He went
wonder
to get the
in
police,
the
I'm sure. He's fine. Let's keep going.
Yeah, I wonder in the, and I'm sure this, I mean, this movie is so beloved. I'm sure there's all sorts of like ways to find this out, but like I'd be really interested to see, like, for example, like how do Andy and Steph get there, and how does it,
Mhm.
like, I wonder if you had all that connective tissue, and then they just they just decided that you don't need
Mhm.
it.
They
You
Yeah.
just cut
know,
it
I
for
mean,
time. Yeah,
it,
I feel
well,
like it's not needed.
There's a
yeah, you don't
scene.
need it. You're like, I don't know. And now it's funny in modern times, you're like, I don't know, they just texted where they were, they pinged their location or whatever. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly.
So there's reference at the end where they fight in the denouement that they have fought octopus, which you just chalk
Yes.
up to a part of a tall story
Right.
by the end. But that actually was a scene where there was going to be an octopus in it, and they cut it for
Oh,
time. So,
Yeah.
like, I'm guessing there were a lot of bits that
Oh,
they just,
100%.
right.
which makes sense because again, this movie is so tight.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
not an ounce of fat on it. It keeps
Nothing.
rolling. Like I think that at this point we're in the movie, we're like less than an hour in. Like
Oh,
Yeah.
easily.
this
Easily.
Yeah.
We're
movie
like
is
30
just
minutes in.
doing a great job. We are in it. We are moving. Also, this was something they set up earlier. Like the dad had this newspaper headline of this dude that went missing looking
Yeah.
for the
Chocolate
treasure,
pot.
Yeah.
which is something that comes up as they're going on their way. Because
Yeah.
two things. First, as they're going through the passageway, Steph has the Velma moment where her glasses break,
Yeah.
and it's the 80s. You have to do it. And the other thing was when they get into the passage, they find a lantern and cigarettes. There's also the water pipes
Yeah.
that all of a sudden
Oh, it's
wreaks
great.
havoc in the
At,
country club,
at the
which
country
is
club, more rich people angst. It's great.
That's a great FU to the end. And I think too, like whenever stuff seems fuzzy, like there's always like a great
Mhm.
gag
Yep.
right after that. Like a part that I had trouble with upon rewatching it now was like Wow, Andy was that into Brandon?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, she really just like
yeah,
she gets right to the point.
She's wearing
You
Troy's
know,
jacket. I was watching that. I was like, man, she's got Troy's jacket on and she's
that's
kissing.
right.
I mean, maybe that's the kink, you know, like I, you know, like, you know, you learn more as you get older, you find subtext, but you know, it's really like that was the part that like I was like, oh, but then again, it's been, you know, it's been a couple years since I've been a teenager, so I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
teenage coupling happens pretty fast, so
Back to the country club though. My favorite part of Troy, all you need to know about Troy is he's reading Guns of Ammo magazine and his toilet explodes because of what they do down below, and he's in water and shit and whatever's in the bath water, and he just screams daddy. And then it's
oh,
like
so
so
good,
perfect. It's
so good,
so perfect. Like that's all you need to know about that guy.
it's so good, yeah, it's true.
So once they find Lantern cigarettes, they also find a dead body because, you know, as you do, it's the
Yeah.
adventurer who tried finding the treasure and didn't succeed. Um, at this point, I make the note this is pretty intense for a kids' film. Also, Andy, who I noted as parentheses hot chick, keeps freaking out at this point, where
Yes.
she's like, "I'm
I have a
attractive.
great
I'm
body.
attractive. Why
Yeah.
am I here? Why am I here?" I'm like, "Yo, you don't understand how movies work, do you?"
I with the skull, that's some more like kind of slapstick dark humor where the head falls off and then Bran goes to grab it and he like
Mhm.
wipes it off on Mouth's
On
jacket.
Mouse Jacket.
Just so good. And they're all freaking out. It's the best.
And by now, Chunk has been escaped and has been recaptured by the Fratellis and has had his scene where he gets to the road finally. And he's like, Mister, I can tell you exactly who they are. I met the crime family, the Fratellis. Horrible, horrible people. I can describe them all in detail. Then the light flicks on, and the side mirror, you see it's Robert Davi, and he just starts singing.
Uh, it's
It's so
great.
good. And then they put him in the back, and it's the same dead body that he was stuck in the ice cream in the freezer with. Like it's the same body. He starts freaking out. Oh, it's great.
Oh,
When they're like it's like an interrogation room, and it's
Yes.
like, all right, I'll talk. In third grade, I threw my like sister down the stairs.
oh,
I took my uncle's toupee to play Moses in the Hebrew school play, and like he's talking about how he made fake vomit, and he brought it's one of the funniest. Like that too is like, and it's cut well because they break it up.
Hmm.
And so it's like it's kind of bookended with
which
like a Goonies scene and that.
And it does a good
yeah,
job also conveying this is how much Chunk is just he has been doing all these things and that's how long it takes. It adds the comedic effect.
oh
Yes.
man, that scene destroyed me as a kid. Like
Yo.
I thought that was the funniest thing. It was that and the scene where Leslie Nielsen is on a hot mic in The Naked
Yes.
Gun and he's taking a piss. And it's just like those two scenes, I don't know if I've laughed that hard since.
That
Like,
okay, the Leslie Nielsen thing, working on a film set with cast going to the bathroom. I've witnessed several Leslie Nielsen moments, and I've always referenced, and you'll always get somebody who understands. Oh yeah, Naked Gun, yeah.
oh,
Um, but yeah, when my favorite part now with the Chunk scene is when Dobby's like, I'm beginning to like this kid, Ma, and he's
Yes.
and they're about to put his hand in the blender, which is terrifying as a child. And you
horrible.
can see the pain on Dobby's face. It's like, I don't want to, like, he doesn't want to go through with it, but then he's got to, his mom told him they have to like maim this child. So,
The the 1980s was such an amazing time for character actors.
Oh,
Like,
yes.
I mean, the I forget the woman's name, Ma Fratelli. She was also in Throw Mama from the
Throw
Train.
Mom from the Train, great movie. Yeah.
Like she, I mean, just an unbelievable character actress. Like, just so God, she was so good. And like, Robert Davi, not like, you know, certainly a step above character actor, but like, I mean, just these really unforgettable faces,
Oh,
you
Yeah.
yeah.
know, and it's like people still, I think it was like one of the last eras of cinema where like skincare wasn't as big of a deal, and sort of like maintaining a certain baseline level of beauty, even if you were
Mhm.
supposed to play somebody in air quotes ugly. Like it just we hadn't gotten there yet, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And
And
so you
Joey
just have these really incredible, like unforgettable faces, you know?
Well, and Joey Pants, Joey Pantaloni, or what, I forget how
Mhm.
to say his name, Joey Pants,
Pantoliano, I think.
Pantaleon. I mean, he's got his toupee, and that is like part of, the storyline, and it's like a kind
I
of a
don't wear a hairpiece.
yeah, yeah, and then they butt heads and they
And it
fall.
slides.
Yeah, yeah, it's so good. But I mean, yeah, the acting is so good with the Fratellis because you have like just three like just
Mhm.
heavy hitters with these
Yeah.
Mhm.
kids.
And it's really a screwball comedy. Like
Yeah.
it's really like you were talking about everybody screaming at once and people trying to make sense of it and stuff. It's like it really and I think there's a certain that's one of the things that lends to the level of comfort in the movie. Not that you know that as a kid that like that's what they're referencing, but there's like you had generations of like the greatest playwrights turned screenwriters
Yes.
in the basically since talking comedies like had worked out those beats and worked out those sort of like worked out that technique, and there's something so comfortable about the way that sort of like screwball-y kind of way of sort of like talking that it's like
Mhm.
even if you don't realize it as a kid, it's almost
Mhm.
like in music like a blues progression or something.
Yeah.
It's like you don't need to know it to know that it feels comfortable,
Yeah.
and so it's like it's just so old Hollywood and like the way, and then of course obviously Sloth is watching, I don't know, it's
Captain
Captain Blood.
Blood.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, that's what I figured. Yeah. And so I don't know, it's really amazing to see that kind of like reworking of classic techniques and seeing just like just how cozy they feel,
Yeah.
like it's really incredible.
So I have the note here about Captain Blood playing in the background when Chunk meets Sloth, which is
Yeah.
great because it sets up later in the movie. The kids get to the waterfall, and that's where they think they found the treasure. Really, it's just all the coins people thrown down the wishing well.
Yeah.
And I made the note about Troy and his friends hanging out at the top of the wishing well, that this is a key of this being the 80s. These are men definitely in their 20s that
Oh,
are
definitely.
playing like 16, 17-year-olds, and they're like, ha 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 ha. I also made the note, I'm pretty certain they're all high based on their over
Oh,
giggles and responses at that
I
point.
could see that. I mean, yeah, they're
Yeah.
in high school.
Um,
Well, I think what's interesting too about Troy is like Troy is a really great tool to maintain the
Literally.
threat, to like right to maintain the threat of the foreclosure without
Yes.
having to continuously hammer on
Hmm.
the threat of the foreclosure, because
Yep.
it's like he's the threat of unchecked privilege, right?
Hmm.
And obviously his dad is the one that's doing it. But and so it's like and even the fact that he yells out dad, or it's really funny and it's a great character beat, but it's also like without having to keep being like, guys, we got to find this treasure so the foreclosure
Hmm.
doesn't happen,
Yeah, yeah,
because that would
exactly.
get really, really tiresome. And so you have Troy, who's a more relatable villain for the audience, or whatever, a more relatable antagonist for the audience, antagonizing force. But it's like, it's just really, really, really smart that it continually maintains this sort of
Hmm.
existential threat without having to continuously hark back to it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well,
Yeah.
and here is the point in the story where we hit that point of no return, where they have the opportunity to escape, go up the well, get out, they'd be fine. And Andy wants to do this. And that's when Mikey makes this impassioned plea that sets Sean Austin apart as an actor, as someone who will go places, who will play Samwise Gamgee, as he says, listen, we're the Goonies. This is what it means. And we've gotten farther than Copperpot, or whatever his name was, did before us. So
Way
let's
farther than
let's
Copperpot.
keep doing this. We can do it. And that's when the only thing that comes up the well is Troy's jacket that Andy had on. And
Still great.
so
Yeah.
great. And they have now crossed the threshold and they are descending into the underworld. And this is also where things escalate because the Fratellis are now following them, which adds again that driving force to
Yes.
keep them moving forward.
Yeah.
Also, when they before the speech, I believe, he says, well, the Goonies never say die, and Andy says, I'm not a Goonie.
Hmm.
And then she puts the jacket on and it goes up the well, and then Troy says, Andy, you Goonie. So like she has turned into, this is her moment where she's become a Goonie. She's
Her,
officially a Goonie.
Yeah.
her character arc
Yeah,
has.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
I like it was interesting rewatching it many years later because when I was a kid, I thought like when I didn't think Goonies, I didn't think Goondocks, I didn't think it was like a
Yeah.
neighborhood thing. I thought it was that didn't register with me. I thought that they were like explorers and they were just goon like
Yeah, I
I
thought it was
thought
like
it
a
was like
gang. I thought that
the
was the name
name
of
of
the
their
gang.
gang or whatever.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I thought she was saying like, "Oh, I'm not a Goonie, like I'm not one of you dorks." But like upon rewatching, I was like, "Oh no! She's saying like Troy is not an existential threat to me. I'm not going to lose my house. I'm a
Yeah, yeah,
rich kid. You know what I
yeah.
mean?" And so like it actually means that she's giving up she's giving up really like in her high school mind, she's
Status.
giving up her station in life
Mhm.
in order to follow a righteous cause or whatever, and to be with Brandon with the shorts over the thing, which
With
it's like a lizard putting out the thing on the neck to
Yeah,
attract
yeah,
people.
exactly. Well, his Nikes are in style again. I was watching, I was like,
Oh
those
man, those things are sick. Yeah,
match for a lot of money. Uh,
yeah.
So she accidentally kisses Mikey instead of Brand, like she had intended. Fratellis are getting closer. Chunk calls the sheriff, and the sheriff just thinks that he's telling another tall tale. And you go over like a list of the things that he's said before, which is very comedic. The Fratellis are getting closer, so the kids start picking up the pace. We get to the moment where, admittedly, again, this is me watching as an adult, never having seen as a child. When I see the giant organ of bones, my only thought is, was One-Eyed Willie a structural engineer?
oh, I
Like
know.
to design this out of bones.
Well, he had 5 years.
Yeah,
You know,
and a bunch of guys. Like there was,
yeah, he
just
had
a
5 years and a
whole.
bunch of guys. One of them, one of them was a musician.
Yeah,
And he's like, "Look, I'm gonna kill you, but not until you make it." So, you
They
know,
specifically attacked a ship, and the one musician dude was like, I'm gonna die. And he's like, oh no, I have a purpose for you.
yeah, nope, you're not gonna die. And so, oh God, could you imagine? It'd be like stuck in the office with your boss like all weekend, like it's just the two of you, And he's like, "No, this F sharp sounds a little, you know what I mean? Sounds a couple cents flat.
let me get
Like,
my tuning fork. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Oh God, can you imagine? Well, a funny Easter egg in when he calls the cops, when Chunk calls the cops, and the cops like, "Oh, is this or is this about those little creatures that multiply when they get wet or whatever?"
Yes.
Because
yeah.
Chris Columbus had written Gremlins was his script that put him
That,
on. So
Yeah.
that was his big time.
yeah,
That
that
was
was
the
Yeah.
his
one.
big script. So
That
Yeah.
that was a good Easter egg. So they have to hit the right notes, otherwise the thing starts. They have like three chances, three wrong notes that they can hit. Otherwise, the thing starts to collapse. You start seeing the consequences of things. Fratellis are literally climbing their way up, and that's when Data uses his this
Punches a
is
pow.
the
Yeah,
punching glove, which I mean, as a guy who read early um Green Arrow and Green Lantern comics, anytime you have like a punching glove hitting a
oh
guy, I'm
yeah.
like, I'm there for it.
I
right.
loved Inspector Gadget as a kid, so that was very much an Inspector Gadgety type thing. But yeah, his punches a pow was yeah, very worked great.
So they fall down the tunnel, they get to the pirate ship, and Data falls into the hold of the ship. Everyone else takes the stairs. They start seeing stuff. They look around. They look for the treasure. They find the treasure in, again, me watching the movie. They decide to throw all the treasure on a table and die around the table, like
Yeah,
as an aging pirate decides to do. And they don't take, Mikey insists that they do not take Willie's treasure like right in front of him off the scales. Everything else they can
Right.
take, but not that. So he has chosen wisely, different movie, but still chosen wisely. And they
Yeah.
start to take the stuff. Fratelli show up and they start taking the kids away. They take out the treasure. This is one of my favorite scenes with Mouth, is when she's the Ma Fratelli is like, you're the one that always talks, the one they call Mouth. why aren't you talking? He's like,
Yeah,
So
and
good.
she pulls the pearls out of his mouth, and everyone's like staring, like, kid, how big is your mouth?
yeah.
And then he spits out jewels and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
Too.
Is that all? Like, yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. The
And
well, oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
was gonna say Andy is forced to walk the plank,
Yes.
which again, as someone who loves piratey things, has written a pirate themed pulp novel. I love this concept, especially when to save the day, Sloth and Chunk arrive, and Sloth does the Captain Blood slide
Yeah.
down the mast, which logic tells me would have deteriorated long before this moment, but it's great in the movie.
You're right. It's the rule. It's the rule of cool, man. You know, if it's cool, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I with the treasure on the table, I don't know. I probably would do that. I'd probably just put. I'd be like, look, we're gonna die down here. Let's put all the treasure and just be like, you know what, worth it. Like we still won, so
Is
Yeah.
go screw Armada. Like,
is this the equivalent of like when in Wolf of Wall Street they like cover the bed in money?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. Well, and what I think I find very funny though is like when Mikey is talking to One-Eyed Willie and they're having like a real moment. And like that's cool because it's it's cool and it's very like again, I mean it's like the symmetry in the script is so great. But like One-Eyed Willie though, not a great guy.
No.
Like not
No.
actually a very good dude. Which I thought was very, very funny watching it this time, being like, wait a minute, this guy killed his entire crew. Like
He
he's
killed
not like
all
a
those people. He stabbed one guy in the eye,
genius, man.
like in both eyes, with had daggers in each eye.
Yeah, like the guy went totally in murderous insane in underground. But okay, you know,
The scurvy will do that to you.
it will. And you never know who started. Thing too is
Eat
like,
your
he might have been a
lemon, kid.
product of his environment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was probably lonely. There's not a lot of pirates in the Pacific Northwest. They're all down in the Caribbean. So he was probably, he's probably all by himself.
That's true.
The most dangerous pirate of the
He
Oregon
didn't start
coast.
stabbing out their eyes until they were long dead. You know,
I may have only one eye, but you don't have any now.
that's right. Oh, it's funny. It's funny. One eye, huh? Right. What is
You
that?
went full Joe
In the land of the
Pesci.
blind.
Am I funny? Do I make you laugh?
Yeah. Funny
Oh,
how.
see now the One-Eyed Willie prequel with Joe Pesci as One-Eyed Willie, incredible.
That was
If the movie had been made during this era where like you just take one piece of intellectual property and just pick it to shreds and make everything out of every potential narrative thread, a One-Eyed Willie prequel with Joe Pesci, astounding.
So kids are in the water, and the Fratellis are taking all the stuff. They accidentally set off one of Willie's booby traps, which is taking the treasure off from the scales in front of Willie.
So good.
Good catch there. And then Sloth, the place starts to like fall apart in very Indiana Jones-esque way, and Sloth bravely holds up the rocks from falling so the kids can slide out. And we didn't touch on this, but Sloth like rips off his shirt and he's wearing a Superman shirt. Talk
Yes.
about
Oh.
Easter eggs. It does the Superman theme. And you're like, that's right, Richard Donner. Thank you for giving us arguably the best Superman movies that made. And kids literally are just show up, police find them, and then they call parents. Again, the efficiency of this script where it's literally pop, 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 pop. And then Fratelli's escape somehow.
Yeah.
And the kids are like standing there while they're coming up on the shore, Sloth's like carrying them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Yes. Yeah.
the
He's bringing them to the police. Yeah.
bring them to
Basically.
police. And Chunk says, because Sloth said Sloth loved Chunk, Chunk's like, I love you too, Sloth. He's like, you
Yeah.
can move in with me, which I'm more curious what Chunk's parents thought of that offer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a weird afternoon for those parents.
Could
yeah.
be an interesting day at the synagogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's true. Well, the other thing too is like, I don't know why I was thinking about this whole time. Like, I'll bet there is so much sloth fan fiction out there. Like, I bet it gets real weird, like, because it's like sloth's reintegration into society and stuff. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I bet it gets real weird.
Sloth working at a post office, just like, just
Yeah,
moving.
he's the mailman. Oh God, like he has like affairs with all like these women, like these like women, and he's like bored women in Astoria. It's like his love life becomes very complicated.
Let me touch your head. Let me touch your
He just
undershirt.
loves everybody. That's his
Yeah.
problem.
So
Sloth's amazing.
the foreclosure is about to happen. The dad has to sign the papers. He wasn't able to figure it out. We set up early in the movie. He's been up night and day trying to figure out how to fix this.
Yeah.
Work in a museum. I don't think that there's a way to fix it.
No.
And as he's about to sign the papers, Mikey's like, "Wait, I have some jewels in my marble bag. We're
No, it's
safe."
Rosarita, she's the one. She has them in the marble bag. She finds them in the marble
Yeah.
bag. Oh, yeah.
And
And Mouth is like, no sign, no, like he's translating it. It's great.
and the reality is, I don't think that's how foreclosures work. But
Oh no.
No, they're gonna have their house and there'll be a golf course all around their house, like everybody else's house.
yeah,
They're just gonna be on the back.
Right. Yeah, well, that even in the beginning of the movie, that's one of those like head scratcher moments later on. You're like, wait,
the
Data's
entire
like,
town's
I'm
being
moving to,
foreclosed on.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean the whole neighborhood,
Yeah.
obviously, but
Well, yeah,
like, but then Data is like, I'm moving to Detroit, and then Mikey's like, no, my dad's gonna figure out something. It's like, wait, your dad's taking on Data's family's problems too?
exactly.
Like, is your dad the mayor? What's like, but it's cool though. You're like, I get it. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
he's grasping at anything.
Yeah, he is a John Steinbeck character. He's
Right.
There's a completely other
Oh
movie that
man,
took
that's
place during
interesting.
this
Yeah.
movie. So the pirate ship is then sailing off into the distance because it became free when the whole thing started. And again, the sails work perfectly fine. The ship hasn't rotted, so it just sails off into the sea. My first thought was, I hope someone standing there goes, "There's still treasure on that.
Yeah,
We have
yo,
speedboats."
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, realistically, it would probably be the whole area would probably be designated as a historical site, and
This
then
was
you
the
wouldn't be able
80s,
to
though.
build. Oh yeah, in the 80s, it'd be like, yeah, right, golf course,
exactly. Yeah.
historical golf course. There you go. Yeah. We'll put in a mini golf course, pirate theme. It'll be fun.
Yeah, we're making it better.
So, what were your guys' big takeaways from this rewatch?
Oh man.
Like,
Uh,
what was the big standout of having seen this again after a little time?
I think for me it was like how tight and like just how well paced the whole thing is. I mean, there's some holes, but it's breezy
Hmm.
and fun to watch. I think every time I've watched it at certain parts of my life, I take different things out of it, and that's just
Hmm.
that's a mark of a good film or a good book or whatever. If you read it as a kid, you're seeing something totally different than if you read it as a teenager, than if you see it as like as a father now. Like it's very well done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I feel the same way. And really, I mean, I've been nerding out about it this whole podcast, but like I just I'm just totally awestruck by like the movie moves so well,
Hmm.
and the characters and the economy of character and the economy of story is so incredible. I mean, I think that like that's the secret to its rewatchability,
Yeah.
Mhm.
is like you consume it so quickly.
Hmm.
It's like a really good it's like a good rock song, or a good
Yeah.
Yep.
a good punk rock song or something, or a good blues song. You just start it over again, like it's really 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 incredible. Like
Well, and there's so much that happens in
mhm.
each scene, which
Yeah.
again inherently increases. It's not that it's complicated, it's complex in a lot of its
Yeah,
scenes,
Oh yeah.
where
yeah,
you can notice so many different things rewatching it. It is. I know that I think it was Martin Scorsese compared Marvel movies to like theme park rides.
Mhm.
yeah,
I would actually think that this is a better comparison to that, where it really does feel like you are on a ride, where you get
Mhm.
in the car and then you're just breezing past all these things, and it's incredible. It really is a fun ride. Even
Yes.
if I
Yeah.
didn't have the nostalgia factor to it, I enjoyed the script. I enjoyed the storytelling. I enjoyed the pacing. Again, the direction,
Yeah.
even the music. Like this wasn't done by a composer I recognize the name of, but
Yeah,
all of
totally.
the tracks, they're
Mhm.
good standards where you just, oh yeah, this is what that's supposed to be. Is
Oh
that's
yeah.
the adventure tone.
And they had Cyndi Lauper. Speaking of music, it was a huge like integration. They had a whole Cyndi Lauper music video. Like,
Oh,
it was a
Yeah,
really?
oh
totally.
yeah, it was big. It was big.
It
But
sounded
yeah,
like they had a REO Speedwagon for somebody in there too. I don't know. One of those songs had that like kind of REO
yeah.
Speedwagon kind of
For Troy in Troy's car, I think.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course he's in. But oh man, what was it? The poster is so Drew Struzan did he
Yes.
did basically every 80s, or he still does them now. He did. I mean, basically every awesome tentpole movie
Hmm.
poster
I
he
think he
did.
did
Like
Adventures in Babysitting, which was Chris
He did.
Columbus's, which is
totally.
it's a great movie.
Oh, Adventures of Babysitter is amazing. Like
I still haven't seen it. I'll add to the
Oh,
list.
it's
we'll be on this
very, very
podcast.
awesome. Yeah, it's very awesome. Well, and talking about the music, like I remember I was watching a thing with John Williams, and he was talking about, which I know didn't do the music for Goonies, but
Mm.
he was talking about how Steven Spielberg is comfortable putting music basically under every beat in
Mhm.
every like I mean, it's just wall to wall music in
It's
his
like a
movies.
Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Yeah, and it's like I think that that's in a lot of ways sort of like amongst many other things like the sort of secret sauce, like why
Mhm.
his movies are so why everybody has such like a unanimous emotional
Mhm.
reaction to his
Mhm.
movies. And I know that he didn't direct this movie, but he
It does his
Godfather was the
DNA
same
all
thing.
over it.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And it's like Goonies is really kind of like a template for so much of that, like that sort of like sophisticated children's entertainment that like adults can
Mhm.
also enjoy.
Mhm.
And but the music, I mean, like it's just like sometimes I would just like close my eyes when the movie was going, and it's like it's just constant music,
Yeah.
and it's great because there's like, I mean, you could be a snob about it, I guess, but I'm not one. Like it's very clear what you're supposed to be feeling at any moment in this
Yeah.
movie.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like at
And
least
that's
what's the primary emotional objective of this scene? Like the the music will just tell you,
and I feel
like
like that's a testament to Spielberg. Like some directors, like a David Mamet, would be like, I don't want
Mhm.
music underneath this. I wrote this,
totally.
and
Yeah.
it needs to be, this needs to feel real and stuff. And like Spielberg's just like, he's willing to put his ego aside, basically, and make the film better. I think with a
Yeah.
script.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I prefer like I mean, obviously it's awesome when like, someone like Scorsese does it, but like I feel like there's a very overused trope now where it's like there will be a scene and somebody will put a song that I already
Yeah.
have an emotional attachment to
Yeah.
Yes.
over that scene. So it's like they'll be like doing something that's fairly innocuous, but like whatever, some song that has like snob, some like a Velvet Underground song will be
Yeah.
playing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you're like,
I
okay, I
feel
understand now the emotional action I'm supposed to be having in this scene. But it's like if you do it with score, at least it's
Mhm.
a singular, specific emotional choice based on this universe of the movie.
yeah.
Which I think is just a different. I think it just requires more skill. you know.
Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because like some scores they all sound the same, partly because
Yeah. Temp tracks.
they will edit it with, like, oh well, it kind of sounds like Gladiator, so they'll just edit it
Right.
with the Gladiator score underneath it, and then it they're editing it based on that, and then they watch it down with the new score, they're like, this sucks compared to what we've been watching,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it ends up just sounding all the same. This sounds like its own thing. This is
Mhm.
yeah.
definitely original.
It's like a mix of like synths and like orchestra or something. Like
Mhm.
it's
Yeah, yeah.
like because the
80s.
kind of like top liney stuff sounds kind of synthy, but then like there's like I don't think you can have a Spielberg movie without like French horns and like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like
Thank goodness.
yeah, it's
Underused
great. I love it.
instrument.
I love it.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Where can people go to learn more about you guys and your work?
Well, AmericanPulps.com is probably the best place to see anything. Uh,
Yes.
and we're American Pulps on basically on every social media,
including
Yeah.
TikTok.
including TikTok. There's like one video that we put up. Mostly, I usually use TikTok to watch other videos. But
I've been recording dances privately for a few years now. I'm just gonna dump them all eventually.
I,
Uh,
I showed my, I don't know if you saw this, John. I made some bread, Paul Hollywood bread, and that was,
oh,
yeah, with the Paul Hollywood cookbook. That was my first and only TikTok on the
wow.
American Pulps page because I was just trying it out.
No kidding. I'll have to check
Yeah.
that out. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell Matt when I dump all of my dance videos. I'm
It's
just
just
gonna let
also
him
it's gonna
find
be there.
out. Yeah, I'm just gonna let him find out. But yeah, Instagram primarily is that's where we're the most at. And then yeah, AmericanPulps.com.
And I will link all of that in the show notes. Gentlemen, thank you again for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for
Thank you
having
for
me.
having us.